Hey there, welcome to First Look. I'm walking today because I can't not walk today. It's too nice of a day. And we're not gonna have that many nice days left in November or the rest of the year, so might as well get it in now. I am in Regent Square because that's where I was gonna be for the next hour, and so you get to be in the neighborhood with me. Which is a nice place to walk because it's very flat. So this week is interesting because it's another one of those not typical weeks. You had a not typical week last week because Stephen was doing this, and who did a wonderful job breaking down a piece of music with its history and its emphasis. And you get all of that kind of, all that stuff that there's no possible way that I could ever do. And then they perform it, and it brings all of that to life. And they did it in this kind of wonderful way. And we've gotten nothing but really fantastic responses for how impactful that was. And I tried to pass that along to the all the folks who made it possible, the musicians and the singers and the Stephen and all the folks who kind of do those things sort of behind the scenes. And it was really, really meaningful, and we're all very, very grateful. So we go from that to something now completely different. Which also includes me not having a front and center kind of role. And that is we have the Presbyterian women, their Thanksgiving offering dedication service. And we often have, at least in my tenure, have often had someone who's guest preaching. And this year is the same. And this is your Blast from the Past Sunday. And Lisa Tweardy, who is now not Lisa Tweardy, but whose last name is now escaping me, it'll come back later, is going to be preaching for us. And someone was asking me, Lisa, if you remember, if you have been at Northmont for a while, Buckingham, there it is. Her last name is now Buckingham. Someone was asking me, how long ago was it that Lisa was the youth director? And I wasn't there, it was before my time, but I was going by recollection of, well, it seems like people talk about it like it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago. It was 20 years ago. So clearly, it's one of those institutional memory things, and people talk about it, which I think is a good thing. It means that it seems like it wasn't that long ago. And I think that's a testament to the fact that Lisa was here for, I think her bio says like 7 years maybe, or something like that. So we're excited about having her, and she's been working in ministry and education all this time, and I believe now lives in Uniontown, and so she'll be in with us, and that's very exciting. So I get to take a back seat again, which is only to your benefit, and but I am going to talk a little bit about the passage that she's going to be preaching on, although I am sure that I'm not going to be talking about it at all from the same perspective that she's going to be talking about it, nor am I going to try to, because I'm sure she will talk about it through the lens of the week that it is, given the fact that it's this Presbyterian Women's Sunday, where we're talking about their mission projects, and we're talking about their thank offering. I'm sure her emphasis will be on that. And so I'll just simply look at it from my own perspective. And you take that perspective for whatever it's worth. So the passage that those in organization of PW, the National PW Association, chose for this year comes from Colossians chapter 3. And hopefully I still have that passage here in my pocket. So let me fish it out here for you now. Hold on a second here. The wind is picking up, so if you hear some background noise, it's the wind picking up. So let me get over here, not get hit by a car. This is Colossians chapter 3. I'm going to stand right over here. All right, here we go. Try to get this person's way. Give her a little bit of space. All right. So this is the passage, Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 17. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against you, forgive each other, just as the Lord has forgiven you. So you must also forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in the one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Teach and admonish one another in all wisdom, and with gratitude in your hearts, sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. What I like about that is it's kind of what you might call a good for all time zones kind of passage. Meaning, like, no matter where you live or no matter where you are or who you are, there's something in there for you. It's easily applicable. Well, it's easy to think about how it's applicable, or that it could be applicable. I think actually applying it is obviously the hard part. And, you only have to look around the world for a second to think about how those words, and I'm hoping that maybe you'll pause this and look a little bit of at what it's telling us to do, is that applying those words is extraordinarily difficult, especially when you look at it on this kind of macro sense. You look at what's happening in the Middle East, you look at what happens in government and politics, and we're having an election here tomorrow, at least here in Pennsylvania. It's a local one, but local elections, as we have seen year in and year out, are extraordinarily important. And you look at the arguments we have over world events, and what should we do about gun violence, and what should we do about mental health, and what should we do about poverty, and what should we do about everything. And this passage seems to speak something to that. And I think most of the time, if you're someone in my position and you say to someone else, hey, a biblical worldview would have to include something that has to do with adhering to those types of principles of mutual peace and forgiveness. Now, that doesn't mean also that there isn't accountability, because if you notice in that passage, there's also accountability. It doesn't just mean, well, you do something wrong and we all just ignore it. Forgiveness doesn't mean that there's consequences. I think that's one of those things that we always ignore, is that forgiveness and mercy don't mean that we also aren't responsible for our actions, and that we don't hold each other responsible for our actions. all of that still applies. And we have to remember that that's true. And so with that in mind, with that kind of accountability and mercy in mind, what do we do with that? Well, if you ever wanted to talk about what I think you do about that when it comes to in the macro, national, global kind of sense, I'm always, you can always buy me coffee and bend my ear about whatever you'd like. But I think one of the things that, you have to take it back to, because it's applicable to the passage, is the fact that this is not written with the world in mind. We can apply it to the world in many different ways, but it's written to a church. It's written so that a congregation that's trying to figure out who it is and what it means to be church can do something proactive about the ways that the people in that church relate to each other. And I was in church today for a while, from this morning until this afternoon, and it was one of those busy days, in church, meaning like the building was occupied by a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. And so we had PW was meeting, and there were some people who were getting ready for a soup sale, and I had a meeting with a committee, and then there was a few other people who were there, and then some of my colleagues were in the office, and I was busy just getting my ducks in a row. Monday is kind of the day I do that anyway, where I make meetings or change meetings or have meetings. I get the bulletin prepared, I do this. It's just kind of my day to do a lot of things so that the rest of my week goes smoothly, and so that I can prepare for Sunday, or prepare for just the bigger pieces of my week. And I recognize that, that phenomenon of having the building be something that's busy and moving and everything is kind of something that I took for granted, at least before the pandemic. And now when I'm there and it's busy and there's people running in and out and asking me questions and, just chatting and doing their own stuff and their own business and their own work, it reminds me of the community stuff, the elements of community that we talk about all the time that are so important to us. And on the surface, all that runs really smoothly. And we work really, really hard, and you all work really, really hard to make that true. But it doesn't always work out that way. I have colleagues who are working now with churches that are in conflict for different reasons. Maybe it has to do with their pastor, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has to do with something that happened in the church that's big or messy or whatever. People hiring folks, and just you see different kind of layers of church whenever you are a pastor and you have colleagues and they're trying to be helpful with other congregations. And you recognize how quickly those kinds of things can break down. How quickly community can break down when people aren't willing to hear each other, when they only care about their own little pieces of power, influence, I guess you could say. And when things are running smoothly in your congregation or in your family or in your community, it seems like, well, how did it get that way? But all it really takes is one person misinterpreting another person. All it takes is uh, one person kind of cutting a corner when they shouldn't be cutting a corner. All it takes is people noticing something happening, and they keep noticing it and they keep noticing it, but then they never really do anything about it. They just kind of hope that the problem will go away, and then it never does go away. And then the pastor leaves, or a youth person leaves, or a congregation member leaves, or whatever it happens to be. Someone passes away. And then all of a sudden, it comes to light. The person who was keeping that thing going isn't there anymore. And now it's not under the rug. Now it's not in the closet. Now it's out there in the open, and no one has any skill sets in terms of how to deal with it. And I recognize that from some of you who watch this. Church isn't like that at all. I think sometimes I talk about church conflict or those issues, and what people will tell me is, oh, I don't really get involved with that stuff. I don't really, I don't know, I didn't see that. I just, that's fine. That makes sense. But somewhere along the line, there are people that if that's true for you, that if church is not a place of any kind of conflict or tension, or that you're not involved with any group or any element of the church where there's something that has to get worked out, that if you're not involved, people that you know and care about are doing that on your behalf, which is fine. But that still means that you're a part of it. You're just not directly a part of it. And so that means that if you're not directly a part of it, then I think the only way that we can grow or change is finding ways of supporting the people who we know are going through it for us the best we can. Because we can all kind of be bystanders in something if we want to be. But we should also recognize that there are people who are losing sleep, making church a good and healthy place for us without us even really noticing or investing in it. Church is complicated. And it's complicated because the world is complicated. And it's complicated because there's always going to be a group of people who are trying to stay out of things. There's always going to be another group of people that are causing problems. And then there's this other group of people who are trying to mediate in between those two worlds. And they're all people that you know. There are people that you like who are troublemakers. There are people that you like who are more bystander. There are people that you like who are in between. And it is difficult. And it is nuanced. And we don't spend enough time, I don't think, appreciating the nuance of the issues that we have. And I think texts like this one, although I think they kind of feel vague, and we're 2,000 years, several thousand miles away from the places that it's talking about. The Colossians are not people that you and I are ever going to meet. But the fact that those problems that they had are still just as prevalent today, I think, only reinforces the importance for us to invest and reinvest in solutions. I take for granted often, and I shouldn't, and I apologize for taking taking it for granted. How much time and effort you all put into being church. You don't have to give financially, and yet you do. You don't have to give of your time, and yet you do. There are people who spend their time auditing our books. I don't know why they do that. I mean, I know why they do that. It's because they're good people. There are people who spend time cleaning the kitchen. There are people who spend time fixing lights. There are people who spend time, counting things and finding things and setting up things and doing all of these things. And I take them for granted because I assume that people want to be doing that. It's their part, it's their element, that's the part they're good at. And that's probably true in many cases. But then you think about how many times some of you have given up your Saturday or your Friday morning, or given up some extra sleep or whatever to do something that didn't benefit you at all. And when I think about that and I step back from that, I think about how absolutely outstanding church can be. Because somehow a few hundred people in different capacities and in different ways somehow find a chance, find a reason to all come to the same place and do a thing. And I think one of the things that I try to remember as often as I can is that as the person in this position, I am a steward of that you've entrusted me with something that is unique. And I really don't want to take that for granted, and I really try not to. And conflict is going to happen, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to try to, figure out how to be helpful with colleagues, with all of you, with the people in the community. And all I can really say is that there's something extraordinary about being able to get up every day and try again to do the right thing by all of you and help us to be faithful. And what I think this Sunday yesterday reminded me, and I was trying to relay this to all of the people who provided the wonderful music, is that, church is hard. And the getting through everything is hard. But what we try to recognize is that moments like Sunday, where we're able to intentionally put our thoughts together and put our memories together in terms of the people that we love, the people that we remember, the people who helped shape our lives, the people that we miss, that there isn't a place for us to do that in the same kind of significant way than there is in church. And for all of its faults, a church can be something that you can't find other places. It can mark the sacred of life in extraordinarily beautiful and poignant ways. And I struggle, like all of you, with what am I doing and why am I doing it, and why am I muddling through this problem? And then you have, days like yesterday, and you remember. It's because community is worth investing in, because life is worth investing in, and it's sacred, and it's short, and we only have so many years and so many memories, and we should celebrate it and remember it and capture it and hold it up for what it is as often as we can. And it keeps you kind of coming back to the table again and again to, audit those books and make sure that we're on the right path, and clean up after this, and, make sure that so-and-so gets their so-and-so and whatever it is, because that's part of it. And it's holy. So thank you for doing it. Thanks for being you. Thanks for doing weeks like we're about to have, weeks like we just had. It's an offering of thanksgiving, and you're a part of that. So I want you to hold that up as we move forward in this week. Thank you for watching. Thanks for thinking through all of this. And I'll see you next time on another First Look. So take care. Thanks.